On this episode of the Houndsman XP podcast, I sit down with Mr. Tony Beals of Michigan. Tony has been very active in hounds his entire life, squirrel dogs, Lycas, all kinds of things. But the reason I wanted to sit down with Tony is I wanted to give Tony a shout out. This was originally going to be a Memorial Day podcast. I was going to chop it up and use parts of it and do some fancy stuff. But after sitting down and talking with Tony, I wanted to feature him in an individual episode. Tony's one of those guys that jumps in and is not afraid to get involved. Even, as you're going to hear during the podcast, with terminal cancer, he's not afraid to keep pressing on. We talk a lot about military service and the challenges that our military members have staying involved with hounds and hunting. When you're going to hear it. You're going to hear how we talk about that. But it's a great episode. I'm honored to have a guy like Tony Beals on this podcast, and I hope you enjoy it. The Old South Dog Box is rocking. Let's get the tailgate down. It's time to dump the box. All right, so I'm here with Tony Beals, and Tony, I'm glad you came down. We've been trying to plan this for a couple of weeks.
Yep.
And get some things set up, and it just so happened we got to meet at a dog event, which was convenient.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a little bit hot in this building, but I got the sweat-proof mics out today. So.
Okay, good deal.
I sweat profusely. When I was in the Marine Corps, I used to just sweat. I think God put all the sweat glands in my body right in my head. So it was horrendous. We'd be out on those long marches and stuff and wearing Kevlar, and my stuff would just be soaked all the way down the front. And the corpsman would come by and look at me. He's like, "Are you all right?" And I'd tell him, I'd say, when I stop sweating, ask me that, as long as I'm sweating, I'm good. I've got a hyperactive cooling system going on here.
When I finished basic training, I dropped 4 pant sizes.
No kidding.
Yeah.
See, I didn't. When I went into boot camp, I weighed 170 pounds, and when I graduated from boot camp, I was 172 pounds.
You stayed the same pretty much.
I did.
Yeah.
I think some of the composition changed a little bit, but I really didn't change that much.
Yep.
Now I can't say that.
Neither did me. Towards the end of my career, it was the Fat Boy program. I had to watch my weight pretty good. So
I tried to put on my dress blues for my daughter's wedding because she married a Marine. So I was going to wear my dress blues to the wedding as well. That was a pipe dream. I was going to have to buy all new dress blues, and I thought, man, where did my discipline go?
Oh, I know. I can fit in mine now, but a couple years ago it was, not good.
I'm going to step right over here for just a second and grab this bottle.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not an old man by any means. I'm only 53 years old, but gravity takes over and starts doing stuff to your body and moving stuff in places that.
Yes, I retired when I was 56, and I went downhill from there. I was doing good to keep up with the younger guys. But
let's talk real briefly about your hunting. You're the president of the National Plott Hound Association.
Yes, yep.
But you've also been involved in squirrel dogs and squirrel hunting clubs, your local clubs. Let's talk about all of that starting out.
Okay, yeah. I started out after I came off active duty the first time. That was about 1984. Got involved in my local coon club, even though when I was younger, my dad would take me out to it. Dave Humble, a Plott guy, got me going, and I just started helping out. Went through a few dog issues.
Yeah, how old were you when you started hunting?
Oh, I was basically, my dad started taking me out when I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
In that. And when we moved to where I grew up there, the neighbors coon hunted.
Uh-huh.
And we're talking the lanterns, the 6-cell lights.
Right.
Whatever dogs they had. So I was always going hunting. Now, I may not have had a gun or anything like that. I didn't really get a gun to go hunting till I was 12 years old. That was the legal age back then. So, but I've always been going in that. And my neighbor got my dad into coon hunting. We always had beagles for rabbit hunting. Our first squirrel dog was my mom's Pekingese Chihuahua Pomeranian cross that followed my dad back in the woods. So
you were out there hunting lions and tigers and bears with that
dog.
dog.
Yeah, big time.
Hey, let me adjust this mic for you just a little bit.
Okay.
There you go. All right.
Got it.
There we go.
So
kind of blowing out the speakers here.
Yep.
That's just mic placement.
So kind of long story short, my younger brother is 4 years younger than me. He took to the deer hunting.
Yeah.
I took to the hounds.
So you've grown up with the hounds your entire life.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And other than times when I took off for active duty, the military, I didn't have any dogs, and then I'd have to start back over. But it's always been about the dogs for me.
Yeah.
And that. And the people in the dog world, because I ended up running our local coon club for, 4 or 5 years.
Which club is that?
That would be Michigan United Coonhunters Club in Michigan.
Okay.
We call it the Maple Rapids Club.
There you go.
But then I got my Master Hounds license, and I started helping out other clubs, and that, and it's continued. Then when I finally came back after I retired, I got involved in the state association, and it kicked over. I was president, vice president, back and forth.
Which state association?
Michigan State Coonhunters Association.
Okay, because there's Michigan Sporting Dog Alliance. What is that? Michigan?
Michigan. Well, my mind just went blank.
That's all right. And then you got the
Hunting Dog Federation.
That's it, Hunting Dog Federation with Mike Thorman.
Yep.
And then you got the Michigan Coon Hunters. And there's all kinds of other split off breeds.
And, pretty much towards the end, as I got older, if they need a master hound, especially for the RQEs, for UKC events, I would do it because it's getting so people don't want to be a master hound.
Right.
In that, So I've just always been that way. And like the Bellevue Club, I consider my second home club. I love the people down there. I go down and help them out all the time. And then I help 4 or 5, 6 other clubs out there too.
Yeah.
In that. So, and then of course, I became board member for NPHA, and then this year president.
So this is your first year as president for the NPHA? Okay.
Yes. That.
I know you've been really active with the NPHA for a few years because, just following you on social media and through the NPHA and different stuff. I mean, you've been involved there. I know you have.
Yeah.
Now they roped you into being the president.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but 1 year, and that's it, due to my health and stuff. So I told him, I said, you need to find somebody else in that. Not that I don't want to, because I'd like to see NPHA move forward and stuff, but we need some younger people in there.
Yeah.
And that's all our clubs. We need the younger people to get more involved in the clubs, help out more. And the sport is kind of dying a little bit, but we're hanging on.
Yeah.
In that. And when I say dying, it's really not the competition part. It's the pleasure hunting part. With coon fur prices null and void, basically, people just aren't doing it.
Well, you got that. You got the access issues.
Yes.
Places to hunt. Actually, with COVID and things like that, we actually saw hunting numbers, sale of hunting and fishing license go up the last few years. We're not sure if that was inflated numbers. There's, like we were talking about earlier, you have to verify every factoid that comes out anymore.
Yep.
But the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is reporting a 30% spike. But that doesn't mean anything if you haven't got someplace to hunt. And coon hunters and houndsmen need property to hunt on. And you usually there aren't very many of us out there that can afford to buy the property that we need. So as we see hunting changing and different things and then restrictions, then we're having problems. It's an issue.
Yep. And I'm fortunate where I grew up. We have, I don't know the exact number, but almost 20,000 acres of public access property up within like a 40-mile range along this Maple River where I grew up. And I don't know how my mom and dad let me go out by myself all the time before I should have been. But I went coon hunting by myself. I went squirrel hunting. So it's different now, but I still have a lot of access to all that. So I'm not hurt that much by private property in that. Yes, there's some private property, and I got to be careful. I know a couple times my dogs get out of pocket and have been on some private that I didn't actually have permission, and I made sure I walked in the open to go get them. 2 o'clock in the morning, and some of the people don't even live in the area.
Right.
And with trail cams nowadays, I don't try to hide.
Yeah.
You know, so I'll walk in, get my dogs, walk off.
Does Michigan have a right to retrieve?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, so,
but even with that, you know, I don't want to make neighbors mad, or even people I don't know.
Right.
In that, you
right.
know.
Right.
So
in your work as the president of some of these organizations, the Michigan Coonhunters, the MPHA, seems like you're always striving. You're not a guy that just sits back and watches things happen or complains about things not happening. You've always been that guy that's been willing to get in there and affect change. What's motivated you to do that?
Well,
because there's a lot of headaches in that.
Yeah, I'm going to give some credit to my military because I ended up being an instructor and I had to get up in front of people. But going to the coon hunting part or hunting part, number one, I taught hunter safety for 4 or 5 years at my local school and a couple other places. But every time I go to a club, an event like what we're at today, I always talk to people. I talk to the coon hunters.
Yeah.
You know, most of them are my friends. That's what keeps me a houndsman. I've met so many good people all over the Midwest, you know, going to the Winter Classic, Autumn Oaks. And I'm not just talking Plott people, which I'm a Plott hunter, but other breeds in that. But in my home state, I'll talk to the people. And, you know, some of the people that are dealing with our Department of Natural Resources, I hate to say it, but they don't get out and talk to the average coon hunter.
You're talking about people that work for the Michigan DNR.
No. The guys that from other organizations that are trying to work with the DNR and get them. Now, you know, they do a big picture, but I'm dealing with the coon hunters because I've been basically a coon hunter. Yeah. I have bear hunted with dogs a little bit, fox hunted, you know, a long time ago. Squirrel dogs and stuff like that, but I'm basically a coon hunter in that. So I talk to those guys. They tell me what they want specifically. And yes, the other organizations are really good, but they work for all the dogs. They haven't really got to that specific thing that the coon hunters wanted.
Yeah.
And, you know, without bringing it up all the time, and it's not saying they're going to accomplish it, but people look at it and they're saying, well, I don't see nothing being done. And then when those guys talk to them, they let it go in one ear and out the other. So it's pushed me to talk to them. Then I go back and tell them, and it gets frustrating, you know. And I hate politics anyway, but it's a necessary evil. I know, yeah. So,
well, you want to affect change because you see a problem, and you don't want to just be the guy that sits back and you want to be a part of the solution and not be the guy that just sits back and gripes about the problem.
And again, just like me and you would disagreed on the wind turbine thing, you know.
Yeah.
I talked to some of the biologists a couple times, and I disagreed with them because, number one, if they would actually come out and go out with us, I think, numerous times with different people, they would see what effects it has and what effects it doesn't have, and the overall big picture of that. But like we also talked, it's a social thing.
Right.
And it's given the impression for the non-hunters about what we're doing. And sometimes we are our own worst enemy.
I'll just kind of wrap this segment up. This one isn't exactly what we were talking about. But a lot of the problem that we are experiencing as a hunting group, we're talking about Houndsman, is we have allowed other people to take control of the narrative and define who we are and what we do. Because by nature, we don't want to be involved in that stuff. We don't want the drama. We don't want all that other stuff. We just want to go hunt our dogs, and we want to have spots to hunt our dogs. We're trying to concentrate on making the best dogs we can have to hunt.
Right.
And that takes a lot of time. And houndsmen, by nature, they'll get together and tell stories for days on end at events like this. But when it comes to getting plugged into things that are going to make a difference for the future, sometimes we don't get involved in those. And it's good that we have people like you that are. So it's just our nature.
Yeah,
it really
is. And in the younger generation, they're just all about the dogs and going out. And they don't want that, you know, until it starts getting later in life. And it's just human nature.
Right.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
In that, so.
Well, you brought it up. We started off talking about our military service, and you credit your willingness to get involved to the military service. So tell us about your military service.
Well, I'm going to start out with a long-haired kid, hot rodder, in trouble all the time.
Yeah.
The whole go to war, go to jail. It wasn't quite that, but and I was actually on good terms with my local police, but you know I kept getting stopped, so I decided to have a change. So I joined the military. Mm-hmm. Now I was about 23, 24 years old, so it was a little later.
Right.
And I joined and went through basic training, AIT, and my first duty station is Fort Wainwright, Alaska.
No kidding.
I spent 3.5 years in Alaska, and it was awesome. You know, it was peacetime. Mm-hmm. It was 1980 to 1984, basically, right in there. Had a great time. Of course, being lower ranking, not a lot of money for a state that costs a lot. But
right.
I did, you know, that was my hunting duty station.
Yeah.
You know, I got a moose, 2 caribou, and a black bear up there.
Wow.
You know, I took a Plott hound up there with me, raised him up, going to train him on bear.
Yeah.
Turn him loose on bear. He started to run it, and I realized the nearest road was 500 miles away. I put the leash on him, never turned him loose again. But that was the start of my military career. I came off active duty, came back to Michigan, where I grew up, and joined the National Guard. And, you know, I was just a part-timer. But then I got a full-time job with the National Guard as a unit administrator, doing the payroll, doing supply. And that lasted for about 7-8 years. Went through a divorce, decided going to get away again. So I went back on active duty. And, of course, while I was there, had to go back through school again. And this kid, and I'm not a kid, I was 39.
Right.
Decided he needs some extra money because he took a reduction in rank to go back on. I volunteered for jump school at 39 years old, and I'm afraid of heights. I tried quitting twice in jump school, and they wouldn't let me. I ended up passing and ended up going to Europe and ended up in Italy in an airborne battalion combat team. 40 years old in the infantry. I'm like,
What rank were you at 40?
I took a reduction from E6 to E4 to go back on.
Oh, my gosh. You didn't negotiate that deal very good.
I had 2 weeks.
Oh,
No, I did not negotiate good at all. So the good and the bad. The good is I didn't really get treated as an E4 when they found out how old I was and what I'd done.
They thought you were some flunky that got demoted.
Then the bad was the younger NCOs didn't like me,
Yeah.
you know. So, but the officers did.
Right.
So I ended up getting some good jobs in there. Alaska was my personal good duty station.
Yeah.
Italy was my military good duty station. Being in the airborne, it gave me confidence. I mean, if you can look out the back of a helicopter or out the side of a door and jump, you're there,
Yeah.
you know. We went to Bosnia on a peacekeeping mission when that all was going on. We did short missions.
Yeah.
Ours was 2.5 months, almost 3 months in Bosnia, and then we went out. Right after that, right around Easter time, we got called up to do an embassy evac mission in Liberia, Africa, and I got on that.
Yeah.
And it basically was a 2-week mission. 1 week we were in Sierra Leone staging. Next week we're at the embassy of Monrovia, Liberia. Now, it wasn't that bad. It was hot. But we stayed right on the compound, most of us. There was a civil war going on, so I'm not going to say it wasn't dangerous, but it wasn't that bad. We didn't get anybody hurt. And we also had 10th Group Special Forces with us and some Navy SEALs. So it was a good deal. And then the Marines come in and relieved us, and we went out.
Right.
And we actually got called back for 2 other missions, one to Burundi, which we never went, and one to the Congo. I really wanted to go to the Congo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was right when the
Dr. Livingston, I presume.
yeah, well, it was right when the Ghost in the Darkness movie came out.
Yeah.
And I was 1 hour from getting on the plane to go, and the leader decided, $10 million and everything here, I'll go to Portugal and leave, and mission ended.
Yeah.
And after that, I finished up at Fort Hood on active duty, went to the Illinois Guard, did a 6-month tour in Macedonia in support of the Kosovo, which is all peacekeeping. And there's 2 things about that mission. Number one, like I said, I was that long-haired, hot rod kid, always in trouble with the police.
Yeah.
I did convoy escorts up into the country, and the Macedonian police would try to extort money out of us. I got to tell the police where to go.
Yeah.
And then we ended up giving them coffee and donuts. The other thing is I'm kind of infamous. The Marines were leaving to go to Greece, and we had to do traffic stop to let the convoy go through. I ended up stopping the Macedonian president's car. Got yelled at. So I was kind of infamous there for a minute, and I let him go. Luckily, the president wasn't in the car. It was one of his high cabinet people. But,
Yeah.
And after that, I ended up in the reserves teaching a little bit. And the last 9 years, basically, I was at Camp Atterbury, training troops for the Afghan-Iraq war and other places in that.
Getting them up to speed on deployment and things like that.
Yeah, all the Guard and Reserve units. And as I tell everybody, I spent 32 years in. I ended up with 18 and a half years in active duty. I fell in a pile of cow dung and come out smelling like roses, come out with an active duty retirement, then ended up with 100% disability. None of it combat. Basically high blood pressure, then a couple of heart attacks. And
You had a couple of heart attacks?
yeah, I had 2.
Oh my goodness! While you're on active duty or after?
Oh
you got out?
no, afterward.
Okay, because that would have been a disqualifier, I'd say.
Yeah, the high blood pressure, I had that from active duty. Because of that, when I had the heart attack, the high blood pressure caused the heart attack, so that raised my disability up.
I'm thinking that dealing with houndsmen and hound organizations probably isn't the best choice for you, Tony. Talk about raising your blood pressure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know, I very rarely have gotten mad at any of them. And, you know, with my hunting and when new guys come up and stuff, you know, now I've been competition hunting since the mid-'80s, and then with the breaks from the military. And I tell everybody, 95% of my competition hunts have been good. And yeah, I've had those 5% where,
sure, we all have.
you know, so to me, I don't let it bother me. And I have never taken it serious. For me, it's about people like you, Steve Fielder, who I met through UKC, Todd Kellum, all the other people all over the country and that. And even last year, I had 3 groups of people come from Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, and Virginia come up and stay with me and go coon hunting. And I take that from my late father. Our Plott hound. My dad would hunt with anybody he met in the woods.
Yeah.
He met a couple of good old boys from Tennessee, Kentucky. They got a ticket for hunting too soon up in Michigan. $300.
Yeah.
That was back in the 70s. They sold him a night champion Plott. Now, he never got the papers, but that dog was our first Plott, and he was a good one.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at.
So I want to talk a little bit about set this up. I want to talk about these guys that go out there that we're looking at a volunteer force now with our military. Talk about their dedication and the things that they have to sacrifice besides the obvious, the injury, stuff like that, but just stuff. You're talking about spending 32 years in the military, maintaining that spirit for coon hunting and your hounds and things like that all the way through. But there had to be huge chunks of time where you had to sacrifice that for your active duty time and for your deployment time. How did you cope with that? How did you handle that?
Yeah, and it's not just the hounds too. I mean, you know, I was young when I first went in, but like I said, I ended up in Alaska. So I've always been an outdoorsman.
Right.
You know, my mom always said I was born in the wrong era, you know.
Right.
So to me, and that's why me and my brother never plan hunts together, because I don't plan. I just go.
Yeah.
And it almost got me in trouble up in Alaska because I went by myself when I shouldn't have been going by myself and stuff. But, you know, I just look forward to it. When I went to Italy, that was probably the hardest part because there was no hunting there, not for me anyway. But we did a lot of stuff up in Germany, and I talked to a few people up there. When I was in Bosnia, I actually got to be good friends with the Swedish major whose brother owned a hunting preserve. And I got invited. I never made it there, but so we talked. And I knew 2 years wasn't that bad, you know, waiting and that. So that wasn't so bad. Then when I went to Texas to Fort Hood, my commander actually took me on an archery hog hunt.
Yeah.
And that, you know, I was the only one that got a hog, and the bow didn't even fit me, but I got lucky. So it was stuff like that. Plus, in Texas, I reverted from hunting to fishing.
Okay.
You know, because the weather's a lot different down there. So, and that was only a year and a half I was there. And then I come off active duty again, went back to Michigan, and got started again. But it's been up and down.
So has it kind of been like you started out, how many generations of hounds have you bred?
I'm not really a breeder, but my first dog good Plott hound was my Timex dog. and I bred him a couple times
Right.
in that, and had one good pup that I had out of him, and some of the others turned out. And then after that, when he passed away, that's when I had the pup, and should have won the Winter Classic with him, but Tony wasn't up on the rules, and we had a good cast.
This isn't any place for excuses, Tony.
Yeah, that's right. And because it was the handler, it wasn't the dog. But then I went back on active duty, come back off, got started again. And then basically that's when I got mobilized for the war, the last 8-9 years.
Right.
So I've given more dogs away, good dogs, than I've sold.
That's kind of where I was
And
going.
I never make money, and I don't try to.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I was, trying to get at, is showcasing that. And obviously, we're not the only two veterans that are in hounds.
Right.
There are other career military people, and I wasn't career, but you were, and other people that have spent a career in the military that are still active in hounds. And especially when you're being bounced around and things like that, it's got to be tough. The last several years of my life, I've got to enjoy the same line of hounds, what I wanted to do. And veterans don't, when you're in the military, you don't get that choice.
No. And one individual, I'll give you an example, is Ed Ranger, okay? He's still on active duty. He's had challenges because, if he gets deployed, who's taking care of his dogs?
Right.
So he's got to have a good network, a good buddy that'll take care of his dogs. He's at the end of his career now, so he's more stable, and he's getting allowed to start that breeding program that he wants. And that's the biggest challenge with your active duty military guys and houndsmen.
Right.
Because unless they got a good support channel to take care of their dogs while they're gone, it's just like me when I got mobilized. I couldn't see having the dogs sit in the pen, so I gave them away.
Right.
One of them went to my good friends Hoop and Tater Franklin, who took him to the World Hunt.
Yeah.
So still had my name on him, but that was okay. So, there are challenges to that.
If you're a deer hunter, or if you like fishing, or if you like, going quail hunting, things like that, it's easier to do that than it is when you're a houndsman.
Yeah, because you just put your gun in the closet.
Exactly. And it's got to be frustrating, maybe not frustrating, but challenging. It's challenging to maintain that fire, but also doing your duty. It presents some unique challenges to the hound hunters out there that are also serving our country.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I mean, it puts them basically in vacation mode, even though it's not a vacation for them. It's a vacation. Well, it puts them out of business, really, for having dogs.
Yeah,
and do the dogs any justice.
Yeah.
So. They pretty much have to, if they get to a duty station, buy a finished dog, hunt it, and if they get mobilized, sell it, get rid of it.
I'll tell you what, when the recruiter came to the house, I was at that age where I knew I was going to go in the Marine Corps, but I also had hounds, and I asked the recruiter, and they always tell you the truth, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's why houndsmen wear hip boots.
So I asked him, I was like, man, I like to coon hunt a lot. Am I going to be able to take hounds with me on active duty? I'm 17 years old. I don't know anything. You got a gunnery sergeant sitting in front of you, and in his dress blue deltas, looking sharp and stuff. And he's eye appeal, and he's like, we got a lot of guys. Some of the Marine Corps bases are the best places to hunt. So he painted this picture and after I got in there, it's like, there's no way I could be doing that.
Yeah.
Especially when you're someplace like Camp Pendleton. I don't know what I would have even hunted out there. Maybe some wild hogs and a mountain lion or something, you know. But shoot, there's no way you're going to keep those dogs.
Yeah, and the thing is, like when I went to Alaska, plenty of opportunities. But I'm an E2, E3. I made my E5 there.
Yeah, it's not
just
like
before I left.
Your schedule's not real flexible.
And that's an expensive state.
Right.
You know, and I tried to do a lot of do-it-yourself stuff. And me and my brother came up, stayed with me, you know. And basically I looked at a map and said, we're going brown bear hunting down on the coast, and we're just going to take this trail here. We got down there. It was 5,000 foot straight up. We turned around, went back home. So, you know, when you don't have the funds, yeah, you may have the time, but you don't have the funds.
Right.
And then, of course, the other thing is you could have the funds, but not the time, because the military comes first.
Yes.
You know, so.
Yeah, if they would have wanted you to have a coonhound, they would have issued you one.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, when I first got to Alaska, all our exercises were in the wintertime. So that was great. So all the hunting seasons, which are in pretty much May to sometime in October, you had a lot of free time. But if you don't have the cash to, you know, go to where you're going or whatever, that makes it a challenge. Right. I was very fortunate with what I got up there. So and that is always the big challenge. When those first 10 years of your military career are a challenge financially, especially if you're a married, you know, service member.
Right.
And that, so.
Yeah. So we'll shift into something, because this is a Memorial Day special.
Right.
How many soldiers have you buried? Do you know?
I want to say, now, from my unit personally, none. But the 8 years that I trained troops, National Guard, Army Reserve, I want to say we lost probably 10 or 15. Now, obviously, I wasn't involved in that. I did have one troop that one of my trainers who drowned in his car up in Indianapolis coming to work. So that's the only funeral I was ever involved in.
Yeah.
But about 10 of my troops that we trained went to Iraq or Afghanistan had been killed in that. Of course, they went back to their home states and that. So that's personally it, you know.
Yeah. How many military funerals have you attended?
Probably five.
Five. And kind of tell the audience what that's like to go to a military funeral.
A couple of them were pretty heartfelt, because like the one that drowned there, I worked close with him, you know. And we had another one. I wasn't that close to him. And unfortunately, I mean, he'd been through one tour, and he fell off his bicycle and hit his head.
Yeah.
You know. So other than that, the other 3 or 4 funerals I went to were guys that had already been out, older guys, you know. So it was just, they were friends.
Yeah.
And, you know, my heart ached for them. But also the way the funeral was conducted, it gives you a good feeling, you know, the military part of it and that. So.
Yeah, we buried some Marines, and one was actually a pilot, that Marine aviator. We don't call them pilots in the Marine Corps. But I think from the public side, when they see these military funerals, and it's hard for us too, because you're burying a brother, you're burying, and it doesn't matter if you ever even served with that Marine. Same way with any branch, you know, you're burying a brother, and it's hard, because a lot of times their wife will be there, or their pregnant wife, or their wife with, especially these young guys, their wife with their small kid and another one on the way, and anybody that's got any an empathetic bone in their heart. I mean, that touches you, and you think about that, and it's rough. But the thing that I always tell people is, emotional as that can be, they wouldn't want it to go out any other way.
Right.
You know, that's what we do. And I don't want to make this sound self-serving with us both being veterans, but I think a lot of times the whole story doesn't get told about you know, some of the sacrifices that are made. And the saying in the Marine Corps is, I'm willing to die for my country if I have to, but my main mission is to make the other guy die for his.
Exactly.
So, but it happens, and that whole story doesn't get told. That a lot of times we understand those risks when we go in, and it's to accept that is a different mindset than most people can fathom.
Yep. And it's hard. And in 32 years, I tell people, because it's just like when I was going through jump school. I got this guy that's just, oh, yeah, you know, he's all pumped up. We're going to jump out. And he looks at this little guy over here. His eyes are this big. He's scared. And he starts making fun of him.
Yeah.
Now, I'm 40 years old, 39. I looked at the guy. I said, I'm scared too. This is not normal. This is not natural.
Right.
And this is what I tell everybody. You got those guys that puff their chest out, that sit there and brag about they're going to do this and that. I tell them, you watch the guy that's quiet. Mm-hmm. That's the guy you can trust. That's the guy that's probably going to save your life.
Yeah.
The guys that brag a lot, they're trying to pump themselves up because they really are scared.
Yeah.
And it's how you control that fear, and it's what you put into it. And it's about your brothers and sisters there.
Yeah.
You know, and I've dealt with an Air Force, Marines. I got put in a Marine barracks when I was in Germany.
That's probably a good experience for you.
Yeah, and the sergeant major told me, you need to watch that guy there. And I'm like, okay, yeah, thank you. But anyway, like I got put in charge of.
You wouldn't have graduated. You wouldn't have retired as a master sergeant.
No,
you hadn't spent that time in there.
I know it. But anyway.
They got you squared away in a couple weeks.
When we went to put our equipment on the Air Force C-130s, C-140s and that, our Army payload guys would come up. You got to do this, this, and this. I'd stand there. They'd leave. The Air Force guy'd come up. And I'd say, tell me what I need to do here. He'd tell me different.
Oh, yeah.
That's who I listen to.
Yeah.
You know.
Air Force is way more laid back. They're like,
yes.
Dude, just throw your junk on the plane. We don't care.
Yeah.
You know, and the company gunny in the Marine Corps, it's like, we're going to line our seat bags up. And when you line a seat bag up, everything's got to be covered in a line and straight lines and all this stuff. Now, they won't let us have the window seats, you know, because then the Air Force has to clean all the windows after we're from lick marks on the windows. but you know, it's amazing the different attitudes, but everybody does their job, and that's what has made.
Exactly.
That's what's made us.
Yeah, and the same thing, you know, taking the Army. Now, my first duty station was aviation, helicopters, Chinook, Hueys, and 58s. So I did a lot of flying. My boss even let me fly for 30 minutes till I hit the wrong button on the intercom and in that. But then I ended up in an aviation guard unit. So I spent 14 and a half years aviation. I know the difference. They're a different style of military.
Right.
Both active duty and guard.
Oh, it was different. It was different from like your Marine Corps infantry units to your air wing to your motor transport.
Yes.
You know, it was like, I should have gone on motor T.
Yeah.
You know, I should have been over here driving around in trucks, going and picking up the guys that are out there humping all this stuff.
And then I end up in the airborne infantry.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, oh my goodness. But it paid off because when I had to deal with the aviation, I knew what to do.
Right.
And also, I learned the difference between Army Rangers, regular Army Airborne Infantry, and Special Forces,
Right.
to include the SEALs. I'd much rather deal with the Special Forces and the SEALs than Army Rangers because they're more laid back. My platoon sergeant looked at me one day when this E7 SF come up. I'm only an E5. He was calling me by my first name.
Mm-hmm.
My platoon sergeant looking at me like, who the heck are you, you know?
Right.
But that's the way those guys were. They would sit there and ask me before they'd ask my platoon sergeant. And part of that come because, you know, when I took that reduction and then worked myself back up, you know, I was older in that. So I really had a wild military career. From
Sounds
one
like
spectrum, I mean, you know, like I said, taking a bus from E6 to E4, going all the way back. I pissed the sergeant major off. Otherwise, I might have got that final rank. But
Right.
I was 56 years when I quit.
Yeah.
And it was time.
Yeah.
You know, I was getting old. So.
I know what you mean. So let's talk about a little bit about veterans organizations. And Houndsmen are among the most patriotic group of hunters that I know.
Yeah.
Almost every hound event I've ever been to, there's a prayer. They're playing the national anthem. They're just patriotic. You walk around the grounds and you see flags on vehicles and things like that. People are appreciative of our military and the hound hunting community.
Yes, they are.
And I think they are in the hunting community as a whole. But the hound hunters, I feel like they take it a notch above.
Well, you see it more because we have big events like this, you know, and, you know, I'm pretty much a United Kennel Club guy, but I help our guys with PKC too. And I think those organizations support the military. You know, I know every UKC event I go to, they're always saying prayers. They're always playing the national anthem and everything at the big events. So, yeah. And a lot of the average folks, well, first off, they've either had somebody in the military, they've been in the military, or known somebody.
Right.
And I have to say, because I grew up during the Vietnam era, that the whole attitude has changed since this last, 9/11. You know, I don't know how many times I had lunches bought for me and stuff like that, and people come up and thank me, you know,
Right.
and that. Or police officers let me off when I get caught, you know. So, it's different now. The hound community really is more patriotic.
Yeah.
They are.
How can houndsmen support our military veterans? What are some things that you would tell people that they could do directly? How they could get involved?
Well, the one thing, and I was going to try to do it myself, but like anything else, you know, you get pulled. I was going to try, and I actually talked to UKC to do like a 4-club or 5-club benefit hunt. It's one hunt, but benefit.
We only need 5 minutes, Chris.
Okay, you guys need.
No. We just want to look to make sure we set the ring up here in the morning. Just give us 5 minutes and you
Okay.
go back to it.
Yeah, we can talk over you. All right,
Yeah. All set?
go ahead.
Yeah. So I never completed it. And what I was trying to do, because Wounded Warriors has the dogs to help the wounded vets in that. And I was thinking of all the money would go to the Wounded Warrior program. But clubs could do benefit hunts like that. Like our state association, we used to do a cancer hunt. and all that money went to St. Jude's, and it didn't count against our 7 hunts for the year.
Right.
In that. So that's some of the things they can do. And I've actually seen posts where some of the clubs throughout the country have done some of those benefit hunts for the military and stuff.
Yeah, Who's Your Tree Dog used to host an event called Call to Duty for our warriors.
Yep. So,
and it was directly in relation with a veterans organization that was helping returning veterans. And we talked about the funeral side of it and the active duty, but a lot of these organizations, take an organization like we support on this podcast, Freedom Hunters. I've hunted with so many of these guys now, and at first when everybody shows up, it's you're trying to get to know each other, and you spend a couple days with these guys. By the third day, they're telling you about, this hunt saved my life. It saved my life.
Yeah.
He said, I have been sitting on the couch. I had one guy tell me, he's like, I've been sitting on the couch for the last 6 months, contemplating taking my own life. I didn't know how to fit back in. I don't know how to, I was drinking, I was doing drugs, I was trying to cope, and I saw the opportunity to get involved here. And he goes, I think you've saved my life. And now they're coming back and volunteering and sharing that story. And houndsmen can get involved on that and be involved in programs like that are going to save people's lives. And our most valued, treasured, national treasure is our military veterans. And I can't think of a more worthy cause to be involved in.
Yeah. And I've noticed, and I tried finding out in Michigan who the rep was. Like each state has a veteran hunt swap and I can't remember what the title was of it. And I never got a response in Michigan, but I see other places that are doing that.
Yeah.
And just like I was telling you, I got contacted for that hunt out in Wyoming, which was just awesome for me.
Sure.
Go out west, do an antelope elk hunt. It basically raises my spirits up. Because right now, with the cancer I've got, it drags me down. But I'm fortunate I don't let things drag me way down.
Right.
And I got my grandkids and his friends who basically come out and love running my dogs, so I can sit in the truck and listen.
Is your cancer service related?
No.
Okay.
No. Well, I can't say that because I always had acid reflux. It's esophageal. So can I say it was my acid reflux? Can I say it was this? Can I say it was my smoking or my diet? No, I can't say that.
Yeah.
Both my mom and dad died from cancer. My dad from stomach cancer, my mom from lung cancer. So I don't blame it on any one thing.
Yeah.
Just like my heart attack, that pretty much was my diet and doing stuff and probably stress. Because in the military, and heck, even with your dogs, there's stress.
Right.
Life is stress. So it's how you handle it sometimes. And for the most part, I always thought I dealt good with it. But like anything else, I had my moments too.
Yeah.
When you got a sergeant major breathing down your neck and, things aren't quite going the right, it's like it gets bad.
Yeah.
And
do you know any veterans that have committed suicide, taken their own lives? That's redundant.
Not real close friends, but I had two in 2 different units, one in 2 different units.
Was it after they came home?
There was no conflict at that time. But I don't know exactly why they did it. I can tell you I went through a period, and it really wasn't military related, but where life just imploded on you. And it's hard to explain to somebody, and I know that's how some of these guys feel when they come back, because they're trying to wind down. They seen things that you shouldn't see, the normal person shouldn't see. And it goes into their head. And, some things will help somebody, but it won't help another person. In my case, I went to the bar. I don't drink much. I drink a beer or two now and then.
Yeah.
I talk to all my old friends. It got me through it.
Well, everybody in Michigan goes to the bar.
Well, I know, but so
there's bars at the trailhead for every snowmobile trail.
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So what'll help one person won't always help another.
I think from what I've been told and from the studies that I've seen and different things, I never felt like that I had anything, that was post-traumatic. And maybe that is a sign of post-traumatic stress, PTSD, saying that you never felt that. There have been times when, I've been felt more anxiety than I thought I should have and that was after discharge. But from talking to some of these guys that maybe have shown the courage to say, hey, I need help, they've all told me it's one of those deals, like they come back and who are they going to share that with? They're going to tell their mom that they had to shoot somebody in the face.
Yeah.
They can't tell their mom that. They're going to tell their girlfriend. There's a big risk there when you start exposing some of the evil things that, not evil, some of the brutal things that you had to do to either save yourself or save your friends.
Exactly.
And there just isn't. So we're walking around in these capsules in a world that we don't feel comfortable sharing the experience with because we don't want to be looked at as freaks or monsters or how could you do that?
Yeah.
And that's what really makes people start internalizing things. And then when you start internalizing, you can't get away from it.
Yeah. Or that person that's more comfortable there than back home. In that, and is always looking. I mean, my youngest son had a classmate. He ended up going on 4 tours. His parents were worried about him. He just kept volunteering.
Yeah.
And you can only press your luck so much.
Yeah.
And some people deal with things better than others. I can't say quite for sure, but I like animals more than people. So
you wouldn't know that, Tony.
I know, but
you're one of the most upbeat people.
Oh yeah,
you're very positive. You're talking to people at this event. I just had a similar discussion with another guy. Some people are. It's for me. I do this every week. Sit down and talk to people. That is not a natural thing for Chris Powell.
Oh,
to be engaging, to talk to people. I'm usually the guy that likes to sit back, and it's hard for me to get in the truck to drive to an event like this. I'd rather stay home. I'd rather stay home at the end of my little dead-end road that sits 3/10. There's a reason why I live where I live, 3/10 off a mile off the main road, back in the woods type thing. And I think that's all goes back to, some of the military and law enforcement type stuff. That's
exactly.
So you take those two things together. But, yeah, I just really wanted to boil this down and maybe peel back expose a little nerve here.
Yeah.
And let people understand without being self-serving about it or saying, hey, you guys, everybody really should support veterans because we're veterans. That's not what we're saying.
No.
I'm not trying to get that message there.
No, and when I lived down in Indiana, when I was at Camp Atterbury, TSC would give me a discount. Now, I never asked for it, but they knew I was in uniform half time. If they give it to me, fine. If they didn't, oh well.
Yeah.
No problem. I was never about, you got to give me.
Right.
But when I went to 100%, I looked, it's like my one plate on my one vehicle is lifetime. The other one's 5 years.
Yeah. You're talking about 100% disability, state of Michigan.
Yeah.
Gives you a lifetime plate.
Yep. and the other one's for 5 years. And then they wrote off my student loans.
Wow.
You know, now I didn't ask for it, but that was there.
Right.
So I took it.
Right.
My hunting license.
And I think that's something that you know the government is still. I gotta be careful.
Yes. Yes.
Government is supposed to be run for the people and by the people. So, by being involved in being an American, we have allowed things like, for me, my kids, since I was a veteran, could go to any state college tuition free. And just because I was a military veteran.
Right.
So thank you, America.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
That helps
Yep.
a lot.
Well, when I got ready to retire, before I retired, President Bush and Congress passed for the reservists, for every 90 days you were on active duty, they took 90 days off your 60th birthday, because I retired a reservist.
Yeah.
60 is when you're supposed to collect your retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because I did 8 years, they took part of that. I ended up collecting when I was 56.
Yeah.
Then when I hit 60, my TRICARE, health insurance, my first heart attack, I paid $2,000. They covered everything.
Mm-hmm.
So the benefits, for somebody, I don't want to say sacrificing, but joining the military and committing to 20 years, 30 years, it pays off.
Mm-hmm.
It pays off, you
Yeah.
know. So, and I've went to VA hospitals. I don't use them anymore because my TRICARE is so good in that. But, yeah, it's been good for me.
Right.
And the hound people. My life has been good.
Yeah.
And that's it. Yeah. So.
Good deal, man.
Love my dogs. All kinds. I got a beagle. I got Lycas. I got Plott hounds. I got a cur. Got Junior.
Junior, I'm pretty sure is a big country blue tick. How old is how old is
13. Over 13.
He can't be a big country dog. Then he might have come out of Bocephus, though.
Yeah. Oh.
He's a shaggy white dog. We're not sure what he is.
It's the only pet dog I've ever had, and he's my best buddy. So.
Yeah. Well, Tony, I appreciate you taking time driving down
I
and
appreciate
meeting
it.
me here. I really do.
Sounds good, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.